Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. This morning, I thought I would like to just read through the Xinqing Ming, or Trusting Heart Mind. And it's in our chant books. Those of you might have brought a chant book in with you. There's some more. I don't know if there's any more out there or not, but many of you know this piece anyway. Maybe not by heart, though. Page 18 of the chant books. And I thought I just would more or less read through it, commenting as I go, and just do it all straight through. I've never done this before. It's kind of an experiment, perhaps. I've always taught this like in a class setting where maybe three weeks or 6 weeks of lectures, and occasionally I've picked a couplet out of this poem and talked on that, given a full talk on that. There's plenty here, so we won't be touching everything that's in this. But Friday night, every other Friday night, we either recite this or the Fukan Zazengi at the end of Zazen. And we were reciting this on Friday night, and when we were done, it just occurred to me that in talking on this, maybe elucidating a little bit of what is in this poem, as we just move through quickly, it might bring out some new aspects of it that can be lost, I think, sometimes when we start digging into the details. And so I think it would give it a fresh way of looking at this. And perhaps at the end, you might have some questions or observations you might want to make. So I'm just going to begin then. Trusting, here it says, trusting the heart mind. I think maybe just trusting heart and mind. And with my comments as we go. The gray way is not difficult. There is nothing it prefers. And what's the gray way? The gray way, in this case, we can just say reality. I'll be touching on this term, the way, the great way, as we go. But the reality is, it's not difficult. There's nothing it prefers. Only when you neither love nor hate does it appear clearly, this reality. Think about that for a moment. When you neither love nor hate, how often are we inclined toward this and away from that? The mind is set at ease, at dis-ease, and we're not really seeing clearly. It's only when you neither love nor hate does it appear clearly without disguise. A hair's breadth of difference, and heaven and earth are set apart. Hair's breadth of difference between liking, disliking. That involves a grasping mind. You are there as an ego observing this. All of these things are taking place. But even to the least degree, it says even a hair's breadth of difference, distinction between, well, this is good, that's bad, I like it, and heaven and earth are set apart. If you wish to see it, then hold no opinions either for or against. Watch that in your mind. Do you have an opinion about this or that? Do you know? Can you know ultimately anything about this and that? We'll see maybe as we move on here. If you wish to see this reality, this gray way, then hold no opinions either for or against. To set what you like against what you dislike, this is the disease of the mind. You know, our mind, they're at dis-ease. We're not comfortable in this world. We're setting one thing against another. This I like, this I think is good, and that's not so good, and I don't like that. The mind is set ill at ease. To set what you like against what you dislike. Yeah, so this is the disease of the mind, not knowing the profound quality of the way, not knowing the profound quality of reality. We disturb our original peace of mind, which is of this reality. We disturb it to no purpose, it says here. Perfect like great space, the way has nothing lacking, nothing extra. There's nothing missing here. There's nothing you need to get or to find out or to figure out or something of that sort. It's all right here, and nothing is lacking, and there's nothing extra. There's not everything that is here and is taking place in this moment. This is essential to this moment, being this moment, and can't be without any aspect of it. There's nothing lacking, but there's nothing extra, nothing here that I say doesn't belong here. Maybe that's not the best way to put it. By our accepting and rejecting what it is that we seem to find here, we lose sight of the true nature of things. It's in our accepting, okay, I'll buy this, I'll take this, I want this, or rejecting. And with the mind, and we're talking about your mind here, in responding in this way to anything at all, anything and everything that's taking place here, we lose sight of the true nature of things. Neither chase after outer entanglements, those things that appear to be out there, separate, apart from me, nor dwell in emptiness. Emptiness, as we'll see, this doesn't mean nothingness. This emptiness is, we find that whatever it is that's taking place here is of no substance whatsoever. But maybe we think we want to go there to find peace or something of that sort. So we don't chase after things out there, nor do we search for, try to settle down into this place that seems to lack any kind of substantiality. Or in this case, we might mistake this as kind of a nothingness, but that is not what emptiness means. Be serene in the oneness of things, and confusion will vanish of its own accord. Be serene, be at ease, right here in the oneness of things. You can see this is oneness with a capital O. It is not one of many or something like that. This whole unfolding, the life of the world itself, which is indistinguishable from your life. In your life, nothing lacking, nothing extra. This is what you're living out. But this is very serene in its totality, as we'll examine as we go on through this poem. But you can be serene and at ease in this. And if so, in confusion, what is this? What's going on? And why do I feel so driven and anxious or dissatisfied with what's happening here? Confusion will vanish of its own accord, just simply at being at ease. How do we become at ease, though? Well, it isn't through our thinking and grasping and reaching. That's just our confusion again. Even in reaching for this piece here written by Sensang, third patriarch of Zen in China, even what he's saying here, we might be reaching for this, trying to figure out what is Sensang getting at here. This is just putting you at dis-ease. Just be serene with what is taking place. Pay attention, not just to this, but to everything that is taking place. Not everything as a bunch of details, but just in its wholeness, in its totality. Just stay here, be present here. Bring yourself back to this right here. And confusion will vanish of its own accord. Movement is stopped in order to get rest. We might try to stop all this movement and change and flux and all of that. But when we do this, when movement is stopped in order to get rest, this rest will itself be restless. Because in trying to stop this, basically what we're doing is we're splitting the world in two and drawing distinctions, separating this from that. And so here, if we're trying to stop all this movement so I can be at ease and at peace and settle down, this rest will itself be restless because you try to pull it out as a separate piece by itself, separate and apart from movement and change and dis-ease and all of that. But if you linger in either extreme, You divide the world in two between, say, movement and rest, or in any other way. If you linger in either extreme, how can you realize that there are not two? And this is why we find it difficult to realize what is taking place here is it's not two. It seems to be an abundance of many things, but let alone two. The two, of course, whenever these things fall into piles of duality here, there's this and then there's that, of any number of ways. But as it says here, if you linger, you try to get one or the other, you can't realize that these are not two. This movement and change and this rest. Without a thorough understanding of oneness, this is oneness, capital oneness without another. Without a thorough understanding of oneness, both movement and rest will be insufficient. Insufficient how? There's no explanation for reality. You'll never understand reality. You'll never understand what is taking place here. You'll never understand your mind or mind itself or consciousness, or why you're here and how you got here and all these other things that you might be searching for. You'll never understand this. The world itself will remain a mystery. Your life, as you're living it off seemingly from moment to moment, it remains a mystery. How did I get here and where am I going? All of this. So without a thorough understanding of this oneness, movement and rest will be insufficient. No explanation for reality. Though if you don't do that, you see reality directly. You're living it out directly. You're not exactly living out, because that's splitting the world again. But it's just being lived out. It's just this. Banish reality, and you fall into it. You try to drive out everything because, well, this isn't real. I don't believe this. We could read this in that way. Maybe in this effort, once again, to quiet your mind, to settle your mind. But in doing this, it says you fall into, you make this reality, or at least an imagined reality that you think you're living out. And here I am, and I'm trying to figure all this out now as I go, and because I want to be at ease and at peace and all of this. And but this is all from trying to banish this reality of this and that things coming up in this moment. You're making it. If you try to banish it, it's not a matter of banishing anything here. You can't. Besides, there's nothing lacking and there's nothing extra. What are you going to do? What do you mean banish? You can't do this. But it also says seek emptiness. The fact that we don't seem to have this, try to get hold of any particular thing here, and we'll start to realize that it seems to lack all substantiality. So you want to see this, but then you deny its nature. Again, you're making something there. Just leave these things alone and stop thinking in terms of the graspables and turning things into something. You can take an idea, a thought, a concept, stop reading literature like this as though it's directing you to get hold of some particular kind of idea about this or that, to grasp it as anything at all. They're just pointing things out to us. That's all. There's nothing here to grasp, even from this poem itself. The more talking and thinking, the further from the truth. So the more we talk, maybe not so much in the way that Sensang is inviting us to hear, because he's not talking in a way where he wants you to hear, take hold of this, believe this is how it is. He's not saying anything like this at all. But usually when we're talking and thinking, this is what we're doing, and we're trying to get hold of this, we get hold of this idea and we think, oh, this is it. And then we try to tell others and say, oh yeah, this is the way you should look at this. This is how it is. It's more talking and thinking, even when we try to make this effort to wake up and to understand what is happening here. The more talking and thinking, the further we get from the truth. It says here, abandon wordiness and intellection, and there is nothing you cannot penetrate. Abandon wordiness, using words. Just realize, Sensang himself is using words here, but we'll use words normally with the idea that we want to get to something, and we believe deeply that the words capture things, realities, and by arranging them just so, maybe we can figure out the bigger picture of what is taking place here, or what things are in all of this. But he says here, abandon wordiness and intellection. Why? Well, because you're never going to capture reality in a concept or an idea. It can't be held as a truth in the mind. Small truths, relative truths. I'm holding a booklet here in my hand right now. And yeah, that's relative truth, okay, but ultimately, that's not exactly what's going on here. What is I, in my hand, booklets, and we can start to investigate any one of these details. It doesn't have to be just anything at all. You want to name or pick out a thought or feeling, if you have a feeling in your right knee right now or whatever, do you want to describe that and pick that up? Is that something particular? Is it lasting or is it changing in some way? You're never going to get hold. So when it comes to this matter of really understanding what is taking place here, well, that kind of discussion might be helpful. You got a pain in your knee and you want to do something, and you want to find out something you can do to maybe ease the pain. Okay, that's all fine. But what's the reality of this? What is actually taking place here? Do we really know what's going on? And here he says that the more talking, thinking further from the truth. So abandon wordiness and intellection, and there's nothing you cannot penetrate. And this is to get right to the heart of what is really taking place here. So return to the root, he says. Get back to the source. Discover the essence. But you pursue illumination. You want to shed some light on this and that. And the next thing, these questions I have here. Now, he says, you lose the source. So just return to the root. You want to get down to what this is. You can bring yourself back to this. Just wake up to the actual direct, immediate perceptual experience. Don't say anything about it. Don't make anything of it. Just see it. And this is discovering the essence. And you want, if something is forming here, now that's part of the conceptual. That's not the perceptual. You're getting ideas there. You use words and intellection to try to, and now with this, you lose the source. Maybe you're shedding light on it, pursuing illumination, but you're losing the source. But this is where we tend to go. The moment we reverse the light, it says here, appearance and emptiness are transcended. So the moment we stop looking out there, is reversing the light, looking around out there, at this and that, trying to get answers and figure all this out. If we just stop that, the moment we reverse the light, appearance and emptiness are transcended. There's appearances of this and that, and the next thing, and here I am, and there's all that out there. These are all appearances. And emptiness, well, all of this that appears to be going on here is empty of any kind of substantiality. This is emptiness. We have the appearance, here it is. The essence of it, well, what is it? Can't get hold of it. It's empty of any kind of, that's what my teacher used to say. This is reality, here it is. What is it? Of course, we might think, well, then we have to answer that. Well, what is it? And we go looking, but if you look very carefully, you realize you never get hold of what this is. But here it is. This isn't nothingness. And it isn't empty. This is why emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. It's not that. This isn't nothingness. Okay, but if we stop looking around out there trying to get answers, even in our own minds, just trying to figure things out here, find this truth, this a relative truth or whatever, and hang on to that. If we just stop this, then this matter of appearances of this and that and emptiness are transcended. They are not something to hang on to, either empty appearance or emptiness. The recurring movement between apparent and empty, it only arises because of our ignorance. And we're ignoring that. So we're ignoring that. We take a very careful look at anything that might arise, whether it's of a thought nature or some kind of physical nature, material nature, or whatever it might be, and we can't get hold of this. But this but these are the things that we'll latch on to. There's this, and there's that. We'll chase after these various things. But this only arises because of our ignorance. We're ignoring the fact that we've never gotten hold of anything here. So he goes on to say, do not seek after truth. This is actual truth, capital T truth, not a relative truth like I'm holding this booklet, but actual, this reality, truth, what is truly going on, reality, self. He said, don't seek after this. Buddhas, we have other teachings. Buddhas don't teach, Buddhas don't seek. And why do we say that? Buddhas do not seek. Yeah, why? Well, it's because being a Buddha, awake to reality, that's what it means. To be a Buddha is to be, you're not confused by any of that. And in not being confused, you're not going to seek after the appearances of this and that, because you see through the appearances. You already know, you can see directly. You can too, and actually you do right now, even now, because you are having a direct, immediate experience of reality. You always are. It's never been otherwise. But we get lost in the concepts and the ideas. But this occurring movement between apparent and empty arises of our ignorance. Do not seek after truth, only cease to cherish opinions. Yeah, so the awakened, they don't seek after things, but they have learned to cease with the opinions. So the opinion might form in some relative context about, I don't know, which way to get to the grocery store or what, I don't know. That's fine. But you don't hang on to any of these things, and you don't think that any of this describes what's ultimately real. So if opinions form, you don't cherish them, you don't hang on to them. Do not remain in the relative view of things, avoid such pursuits carefully. Okay, why not remain in the relative view of things? Well, in the relative view of things, all we're going to end up doing is just chasing after things, this and that. But if he goes on to say, if there's the slightest trace of this and that, and this slightest trace of this and that, this is in your mind. Okay, if in your mind you believe, you think there's this and there's that. There's this microphone here, well, in the stand, yeah, and yeah, we deeply believe. We don't think we believe. We know. We don't think about it much, but we know if the question comes up, we know there's a microphone here. Yeah, this is being caught in a relative view of things and that. But if there's the slightest trace of this and that, the mind is lost in confusion. Okay, but because this trace of this and that, the awakened realize this is just something appearing in the mind. They wouldn't think of it as something appearing in my mind. There's something appearing just thus. Reality, in totality. It's also called mind with a capital M. They know this. They say, you do too. You all see this. This is the perceptual experience. But what we'll do in our mind is we says here that there's a slightest trace of this, and now we're turning into something substantial, real. And with this, the mind is lost in confusion. Says the two exist because of the one. Maybe I would say that I don't know about the word exist so much. That implies that something's persisting there. I think we can just simply say the two appear because of the one, but do not hold on to the one. Don't make the one now into something, which is what we'll tend to do. We tend to make things into things. When the mind is not disturbed, there is neither offense nor blame. When nothing offends, the multitude of things vanish along with the mind. Now this kind of, it could be the appearance of real, but that's your mind. Okay, and I think in this case we could say that so it's like we're talking about something like your mind, but that's just an appearance. But when this mind, when you, if you're not disturbed, if there's some settledness here, at easeness here, then there's neither offense nor blame. When nothing offends, multitude of things, the appearances of things here vanish along with the mind. When no discriminating thoughts arise, the mind ceases to appear. So without these discriminating, this is what the mind, this is your mind. Your mind, my mind appears here in making these discriminations of all of that out there. So there appears to be something out there, and oh, and here I am observing that, hearing that, seeing that, and the same, thinking that, and feeling that, whatever you want to put. But we have, we'll imagine this observer here, along with the apparent thing out there. But if that vanishes, so does this subjective side of it as well. When the mind vanishes, things follow it. Object is object for the subject. Subject is subject for the object. The thoroughgoing relativity of these two is originally one emptiness. Okay, it is originally empty of any kind of substantiality, is what he's saying. In emptiness, mind and thing are indistinguishable. Yeah, they're lacking individual substance and things that could, the things that we would discriminate between this and that and the next thing, seen as non-substantial, then this thing we call mind, and thing. This is mind and thing then themselves become indistinguishable. Okay, it's just mind is thing. We could put it that way. In other words, so if you see this thing, you think it's out there. Now you're making everything substantial here. But if you see it in terms of non-substantiality, it's just this. You are that. That is you. There's no particular. So what are you exactly then? Well, there's no particular thing that's you, or that for that matter. And this is kind of what he's saying. So in emptiness, if you can see this, the lack of substantiality of all that's taking place. Mind and thing are indistinguishable, and each contains within itself the whole world. That's what he's saying here. Sums it, he puts it in a nice, pithy way there. Already I'm using maybe too many words. If you do not discriminate between coarse and fine, how can you be for this and against that? Now you realize that this discrimination is just coming from still seeing things in terms of me. This is what I like this, I don't like that, this I want to get away from, I feel threatened by that, and oh, this is where I want to go, that sort of thing. And this is good, that's bad, this is coarse, this is fine, he's saying here. If you do not discriminate in this way, then how can you be for this and against that? The great way is all embracing, this great way that we started out with. And it's not difficult, as we saw in the opening here. It just is without preferences. You can find this too. If your mind becomes like the mind of the great way, really, that's where its home is, that's where its full expression is right with that. And there is no discrimination, certainly not one that we would hang on to or cling to or try to work from something from. But the great way is all embracing, okay? And your mind can be like this as well, all embracing. And it's neither easy nor difficult, okay? And it starts out, the great way is without difficulty. It's all embracing. Limited views are flighty and insecure. So limited views are, when we're grasping things, now we have, I like this, I don't like that. It's limited in this way. Subject is right there with the object and all of that. And, but limited views are flighty and insecure, now rushing headlong. Yeah, now we're rushing toward this that we want and we're holding back. I don't want that. But in clinging to this, the object, this thing, this is in quotes here. There's nothing behind that. We'll call this microphone, this booklet here, this hand. In clinging to this, which is actually beyond measure, he says, this which is beyond measure. After all, what is it? Whatever it might be. If you look carefully, you can't say. Again, like my teacher would say, here it is. What is it? And we can't really get hold of it. We're not at ease with this. We keep trying because we just assume, well, it is something because I see it, I touch it, I'm going to feel it. But that's no assurance, really. But in clinging to this, which is actually beyond measure, okay, this, the object, which is beyond measure, the mind enters a path. This is your mind. It enters a path that leads it astray, leads you into confusion, and starts reifying all the beliefs you might have in the reality or substantial nature of what is appearing here. Let things take their own course and experience neither going nor staying. So let things be as they come and go, as they appear here and there, coming and going, and experience neither going nor staying. Nothing is actually coming or going. This is how the Buddha described himself, Tathagata, coming and going thus. Coming and going, how thus? Coming and going in such a way that there's actually nothing you can get hold of, nothing that's coming or going. That's the appearances. It is just that. So let things take their own course and experience neither going nor staying. Obeying the nature of things, we are in accord with the way. We can see this, and then obey this, go along with this. Now we are in accord with the way. This great dance, the way is without difficulty. And this term, particularly at this stage in early Zen in China, this is making use of what was kind of blending with a lot of Taoist ideas. Tao is the way, maybe way capitalized. But in the minds of the Taoists, and it has many meanings, even in the ancient Chinese and how they thought of this term. But in some cases, you can find this in this book that came out recently. It's quite interesting, called China Root, and it looks at this term. And there he describes, in the mind of the early Taoists, they were thinking of Tao, or the way, this great way, as sort of a kind of a dance between absence and presence. Very close, very much like the Buddhist understanding that we get from Nagarjuna, and where he speaks of the two truths of relative, we've been looking at here, and absolute, which you can't get hold of in any way whatsoever. And that's like absence and presence. Is it sort of? Well, there it is. And this is how people have pointed to this subtle nature of reality, but that is nearly impossible to speak of or to talk about. But here he says, so obeying the nature of things, we are in accord with the way, wandering freely without annoyance. And just be at ease with that term, the way, wandering freely without annoyance. And don't try to grasp it. Don't try to get hold of it. But you can see this. You can see the utter freedom and fluidity of reality itself, which is another way of speaking of this or looking at it or pointing at it. In this dance between presence and absence. When our thought is fettered, that is, it's attached to things. So the thought is fettered and attached, thinking that, well, there really is this and that. And here I am, and I'm real, and it's out there with all these other things, some of which I like, some I don't like, some I feel threatened by, and other things I want to chase after. All of that. But now our thought is fettered. When our thought is fettered, it turns from truth. It is dark, heavy, unclear. It's unclear. Nagarjuna says, for those to whom emptiness is not clear, nothing is clear. That's where most of us aren't. Emptiness is this lack of substantiality, which is directly seen. That's our direct perceptual experience. If we don't think about it, you can see this. But, and he says, for those to whom emptiness is, but he said, what that is not clear, then nothing is clear. For those to whom emptiness is clear, everything is clear. Everything. There's nothing lacking, nothing missing. The whole thing is obvious as to what this reality is. It's quite as about as obvious as anything could possibly be. And yet, because we go looking for somethingness about it, we miss it. But when our thought is fettered, it turns from truth, dark, heavy, unclear. The burdensome practice of judging brings annoyance and weariness. Yeah. So this matter of this practice of judging brings annoyance. Judging is only occurring in the mind because you think there's substantiality behind the various things that are being distinguished here. It is foolish to irritate the mind, says Sensang. Ooh, I better move along here. Why shun this to be friends with that? Yeah, so we kind of looked at this in a similar fashion a few lines back. When seeing this and that, and why shun this? Because the great way is all embracing. There's nothing it prefers. If you make your mind like that, move your mind toward that kind of a way of expressing itself, you're not irritating the mind. If you wish to enter the one vehicle, okay, the one vehicle this is to basically to wake up, is what he's saying. If you wish to enter, if you want to wake up, do not flee from the six dusts. And the six dusts is the world of appearances, the world of this and that, the world of self and many. Indeed, not hating the world of the senses is identical with true enlightenment. So this isn't about, well, I got to purify my mind. It means I have to get away from all these dusts and contaminants and this delusion and all that. You can't do that. And now you're caught in a very confused mind thinking that this is what you need to do and that this is what this practice is and this is what this teaching. This is just stuff you're making up. You're getting caught up in. So not hating the world of the senses is identical with true enlightenment. And he says the wise have no motives. They're not driven to do anything in particular. I'm going to do this so that I can get something else over here. They're moved by this or that to do this or that. And that's our ordinary way when we think that there's a this and a that, and I'm one of these things. Yeah, but the wise do not do this. The wise have no motives. Fools, and it doesn't mean stupid people necessarily, but it means people who are being fooled, essentially. You're foolish. You start to do foolish things because you're fooled by, and what are we fooled by? We're fooled by seeing substantiality where there isn't any. And with this, he says the fools shackle themselves, but it's just through their understanding, is all, their conceptual grasp of things. They're relying on wordiness and intellection, and they shackle themselves. There's one Dharma, one truth, one reality, not many. Distinctions arise from foolishly clinging to this and that, granting substance to this and that and the next thing, and then clinging to this. So, but this is all, taking place in the mind. And seeking mind, this is mind with a capital M, reality, seeking what is taking place here, with discriminating mind, which is my own personal mind, my ego mind, and I want to find this and I'm going to pursue this and chase after that. Seeking mind, again, Buddhists don't seek, as I mentioned earlier, but seeking mind with discriminating mind, is not this the greatest mistake? Ignorance begets motion and rest. Wisdom neither loves nor hates. I think I'll move a little more quickly here. All dualities derive from false inference. Much of this now I think can be gleaned from what we've already looked at. All dualities derive from false inference. They're like dreams, phantoms, flowers in air. Why so anxiously pursue them? In confusion and granting substance to them, we've pursued them. Why so anxiously pursue them? Gain and loss, right and wrong, away with them once and for all. The great way is all embracing. Why pursue these things? And the appearances of right and wrong and gain and loss and all this sort of thing, Just don't be disturbed by this. Don't chase after these things. Don't run from it. Don't be perturbed. If the eye does not sleep, if the eye doesn't see objects, in other words, in effect, all dreaming will naturally cease. If you're not seeing things in terms of substantiality, then all the dreaming and the imagining and the fearing and the longing and the loathing and all of this, these all naturally cease. If the mind makes no discrimination, this is like if your mind even make no discrimination, then all things as they are of a single essence. It is of this one reality, this one mind. As Wang Po says, there's only the one mind besides which nothing exists. In the deep mystery of this one essence, entanglements drop away. Yeah, the term mystery here now, well, this would appear mysterious if we don't yet see the great way. But in seeing the great way, there's no mystery about this. Mystery is only there when we're still interpreting the world in terms of substance. And now we can find all sorts of mysteries, little mysteries. But as for the total great mystery of the whole, all of this, it's not a mystery. It can be seen directly, and it's not an it. It's not anything at all that can be grasped, and yet this can be seen and known and understood. And so I wouldn't call this a mystery, but until we wake up to this, it seems like what these awakened guys are talking about here seems rather mysterious. But actually, the mystery is only there when you think there's substance. Now you can have mystery. You can have paradox, you can have a lot of confusion there with it. But in the deep mystery of this one essence, entanglements drop away. Yeah, if you actually see the nature of this one essence, and entanglements drop away. When all things are seen equally, timeless thus in itself is reached. Yeah, and we'll kind of end on that note in a way, we could say. Yesterday, neither yesterday, today, nor tomorrow. When timeless thus, when all things are seen equally, then timeless thus in itself is just thus and without time. Forget the why of things. Well, why this? Why that? That keeps us caught in this mystery. Why forget the why of things when there can be no measuring or comparing with seeing the empty nature of what is taking, the lack of substantiality of everything that's taking place here. Then where can there be this measuring or comparing? When motion stops, there is no motion. When rest is set in motion, there is no rest. Okay, well then, if we look at motion and rest, I won't take time now because we just don't have it. But you can't, is there motion? Is there no motion? There certainly appears to be motion. You try to get a hold of the substance of what that is. Is there something there beyond the appearance of motion? Is motion then the appearance of motion? We can have all kinds of questions here. But as long as we keep trying to get a conceptual handle on this, it'll all remain a mystery once again. But when we see through this and the lack of substantiality, anything at all that we want to be speaking of, even things such as motion and rest, these entanglements and the confusion of mind drop away. Since two cannot be established, or many cannot be established, then how can there be one? One with a capital O, one without another. Because again, you can't hold that, you can't grasp that either. But we can see that this is the nature of reality. It's just, you can't get hold of it, but we can see its nature. It's of this, it's of a nature that you can't get hold of it, but you can directly realize it, see it, know it. In which case, now there's no mystery, and or unsettledness of mind. Since two cannot be established, how can there be one? Arriving where there is no further, because the intellect, the conceptualizing, cannot go beyond this point where he's pointing. It's like we've gotten to this point where there's no further. You can't go any further than this, but still we can see. And it's sort of like that. But is that further? Well, is there a further? A further and a here and a there is all part of the conceptualized, the constructed world in our mind that will grant substance to. But here now he's brought us to where there's no further. There's really nothing more to say in a way. There can be no law or description to apply. For the unified mind, the mind of reality, or even your own mind, if you can get this in touch with mind, the unified mind in accord with the way all self-centered striving ceases, because now things are seen in totality, in wholeness. Doubts and irresolutions vanish. Now, there's doubts and irresolutions. And they vanish. And then he says faith or trust, not belief. Sometimes this is translated as belief. That's absolutely not what's being spoken. This is not about belief. Believing is conceptual. And a conceptual just simply won't take us to where we see this place where there's no further. We're still hanging on to beliefs. We're hanging on to stuff. What he's saying here, doubts and irresolutions vanish because we're no longer other dependent. We're not dependent on something else out there that we have to stand on, or to take another step and that sort of thing. Like we're at the top of the 100-foot pole, so we'll take another step. Yeah, but if we see this, you'll understand. Faith is confirmed. Trust. Yeah, not belief, but trust. We can trust our direct experience as long as we see that, without polluting it with a lot of ideas that we might have with it. And were we to do this, then this trust that we have, this faith that we might have in this, not belief, but faith, trusting in this, is confirmed. And there's nothing left behind, nothing's left out, nothing to remember, nothing to add in. Empty, lucid, self-illuminated, the mind with a capital M, this self, true self. The mind does not exert itself. Reality does not exert itself. It's only things within the broken out aspects, the conceptualized parts of the world, where one thing will exert itself against another and that sort of thing. But here in terms of totality, the mind does not exert itself. What would that even mean? This is where thought is useless, what sense or feeling cannot fathom. Yeah, so you can't conceptualize it. In this world of suchness, here it is, thus, just this, there is neither self nor other. And with this neither self nor other, now we don't have this other dependence. Otherwise, when we're still hanging on to ideas, beliefs, concepts, whatever else, or other things, people, whatever, we're still other dependent. And there's a kind of a disease in the mind, which also makes it difficult for us to see reality in totality. But in this world of suchness, were we to awaken to just this, there's neither self nor other, to come directly into harmony and with truth, then is what he's saying. All that can be said is not two or not many. But not many doesn't mean not many. There's still the appearances of many. In this not two, nothing is separate, but we're speaking. So there's the two truths. Then there's the truth of the many, the relative truths, and then there's absolute truth itself. In this not true, nothing is separate, nothing is excluded. The enlightened of all times and places have all entered into this truth, this one truth, this truth with a capital T. It says entered into. Well, I don't know about entered into. You're in it right now. I mean, we don't enter into this. It's more a matter we just wake up to this. So they have all awakened to this truth. We are in it, but if we're confused, we're not awake to it. We don't realize it. But you can at any moment, if you just get past hanging on to any ideas you might have about this or that. This truth is not extended in time or space, for in it a moment and an eon are one. So this thing about time, I guess I probably won't be able to say too much now, but this is rather interesting because we'll be picking up on it here again. But there's neither here nor there, yet this truth is manifest in all directions. The infinitely small is as the infinitely great. When limits are forgotten, the very large is as the very small. When outlines are dissolved. This is all of this. Now we're looking at this in terms of totality. and seeing it not from our normal way where we're seeing things broken out in time and space, objects of this and that, and feelings and thoughts, coming and going. Many of these things seeming to take space, other things don't, like thought. How much space does that take? But the appearance of things coming and going. Now he's kind of looking at this in terms of the totality. The totality of all of this is very stable. In what class am I? Oh, the sixth perfectionist class. I use that example of the balloon. If any of you were taking that, we blow up the balloon and it seems very stable. Yet the inside, what's holding that balloon out is all this fast and vibrant movement of many molecules rapidly dancing around inside. So, but in the infinitely small, when limits are forgotten, the very largest is when outlines are dissolved. Being is an aspect of non-being, non-being an aspect of being. So if you're going to say being, then that's to persist, to be. That's a being, one who persists necessarily. But there's the aspect of non-being. And then it contains, A is not A. Again, we were looking at that in the sixth perfections class. A is not A, therefore A, which from a substantialist view, that's absurd. And yet, if we were to see things in totality, that is very close to pointing right at the nature of how things are. So you can't speak of being without dragging in non-being, or vice versa, non-being. In the Kakayanagoda Sutra, where the Buddha, said to see things with right perception, the uprising of the world as it comes to be in this moment, the notion of non-existence doesn't occur. To see with right wisdom, the ceasing of the world as it has come to be in this moment, the notion of existence doesn't occur. But this is what we have, these two going together. And with that, we have this reality that cannot be grasped, but here it is, very fluid, appears to change, and yet can't stake that down anywhere. How could you if it appears to be nothing but change? And yet here it is. So there's a lot here, and I'm quickly rattling away with various things. I'm probably not going to help very much to bring all of this out. But we're near the end here. But being is an aspect of non-being, non-being an aspect of being. Don't waste time in doubts and arguments that would not have it so. We can argue about this, but that just keeps us caught in the world of appearances, in the world of confusion. The one, capital One, is none other than the all, capital A, all. The all, capital A, is none other than the one, capital O, the one without another. If only this is realized, and it's a matter of just seeing this, not thinking it, not coming up with the concept of it or an idea. I mean, that's just an idea or a concept or a picture or something like this. But if this is realized, if only this is realized directly, the rest will follow of its own accord. The full awakening is right there with it. Trusting heart mind is the not two. It is not two. It's not one. It's not two. So how is it? Yeah, the conceptualizing mind. Well, how is it then? And as we go wrong, just look at this. It's not one. It's not two. What do you want me to say? You say, well, it isn't anything in particular. Then it starts to sound like maybe we're not talking about nothingness. No, of course not, because this isn't nothing. We're not at ease with just seeing this and not grasping something. We feel like we have to hang on to something. This is what, in the end, that's kind of what really blocks us in a way. To see this. Is there something wrong with you? If there is, you try to find out what that is. It's a matter of just waking it. With this, your mind would help if you could settle your mind. And maybe you could see this. But trusting the heart mind is the not two, this non-duality. For non-duality is one with, here it says faith, but trust, seeing thus. Okay, non-duality is one with this trust, this confidence, this faith, that this immediate direct experience, if we don't grasp it, shows everything. Besides which nothing exists, as Wangpo says, or everything is clear, as Nagarjuna says. This is where words fail. Can't really go beyond this point where there's no further. This is where words fail. The conception fails. The conceptualizing mind fails. The wordy mind. For the way is neither yesterday, today, nor tomorrow. Okay, so the way is not of, basically it's not of time, not of space. Well, I don't know, I thought maybe that would be just a different way to present, like, just see if I could kind of race through it, I guess, in one sitting. I don't know if, I hope that was maybe a little helpful for you. But I guess that's all I have to say at the moment. We have a minute here if anybody has a question or comment or anything. Yeah, Mike.
What do you mean, there's one part of there where you said something like object is object for the subject?
Yeah. Well, yeah, well, as soon as, I mean, our normal take then is there's an object out there. In this case, I could just, I'm looking at you, you know, you're some objective reality there, you're, you know, and, but with that, there's also the sense of me here looking at that or hearing you or seeing, you know, and whatever it might be. So if we're seeing this, and this is our normal take, the awakened see consciousness as the dividing up reality. The basic split that's there is, the first one is, here I am, and now there's everything else out there. And so there's the objective stuff out there, and then here's me, the subject. But these come along together. You can't just suddenly have an objective world out there and there's no subject. You know, what would that be? And the two of these can, you know, they arise together. And it isn't like this falls apart or something and it vanishes, because that's clearly not the case, because this never vanishes. It's always does. But what vanishes, what we can finally see through is substantiality. That's what's not there. There isn't some substantial thing that's the object. Whether it's you, Mike, you know, and it would be very important to you and all that, as long as you're looking at things involving the subject. But it could be anything at all. You know, the planks on the floor here, whatever it might be, you know. But as long as we're granting substance to that, and the self is here, if we finally see through this, see the emptiness, the lack of substantiality of the appearances of the objective world out there, then the subjective side of it goes as well. People misunderstood, and even today people misunderstand sometimes, that the Buddha taught that there's no self. But the Buddha never taught that there's no self. That would be making it into something solid. You know, that there's no self. It's reifying the self in kind of a backhanded sort of a way. What the Buddha pointed out is that we don't find a self within this experience. We seem to, because we see all these objective things out here. And so here's the subject here, me, who's seeing all of this, or hearing it, or tasting it, or whatever it might be, thinking it, feeling it. And but what he's pointing out is that, well, you know, you can't get hold of the seer, the thinker. But by the same token, if you look carefully, you can't get hold of the object either. But it doesn't mean this is nothingness. That's how people misunderstand emptiness. Now, emptiness just is what's lacking there is substantiality. The appearances, you can't say the appearances are lacking. Here they are. We can't ignore that. And the Buddha didn't ignore that. But what he pointed out is you can't get hold of the essence, because you'll never find it. For all practical purposes, there isn't any. The essence of the thing is the whole thing itself. There it is. Totality. And this is what is directly experienced all the time. It's impossible to not know this. And we all know this. We all know the truth. This is why enlightenment is called awakening. We wake up to what it is that has been here all along that we've always known. But with that, we've ignored, that's ignorance. We're ignoring what's really going on here. We're not noticing the lack of substantiality within the experience. Were we to actually see this directly, all of a sudden now we would even have understanding of why it appears this way. And it cannot be otherwise. That's truly remarkable. But that will really clear up. That's why I say there's no mystery. But were we to have even the slightest difference of this and that and all the, the mind of heaven and earth are split apart, and the mind is lost in confusion, all of this. That's if there were the slightest bit of substance to any of this, suddenly everything would shut down, except that clearly isn't happening. It cannot happen. It just simply does. And I've explained that to us a little bit more. I mean, were there a book? Now we can't have a book. We don't have consciousness. We don't have mind. This really seems bizarre, but because I remember when I first encountered that, what? Because I'm a pretty logical guy, and I studied logic, all of this. I know how it works, but of course I learned all of this when I was still clinging to a conceptual grasp of reality. That's very functional and useful in many ways, but it doesn't give us a full understanding of what's actually going on here. Were we to wake up to what's going on here, we will see the lack of substantiality. This is Nagarjuna saying, for those to whom emptiness is clear, everything is clear. That's getting you right to the nub of the problem there. For those to whom emptiness is not clear, confused, what do you mean empty? No, nothing is clear. And that's where most of us are. Most of us haven't even entertained the thought of turning our attention to this emptiness. What do you mean? But whether we have or not, most of us we assume non-emptiness, or we assume substantiality. So anyway, but we have gone over. So I hope that's okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.